Hey there, people. Welcome to the Fit for 90 podcast. I am your host, Cayman Bandel, footballer and strength and conditioning coach. Today, we're going to talk about a topic which I actually love speaking about. I've helped a lot of players map their training week out properly around their non-league commitments. This one is, I call it the non-league training blueprint. It's how to map out your training week. Most non-league players, I don't think they struggle because they're not training enough. They're doing quite a lot. I think they're probably struggling because they don't know where to fit excess training around football, around work, around life. And then they end up doing like this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They're guessing week to week. Some weeks they train too hard. Some weeks they're doing nothing. Some weeks they're completely wiped out by Saturday. And I've done that myself, by the way. I hold my hands up to that in the past. So today I want to walk you through what I call the non-league training blueprint, how to map out your week when you've got matches, when you've got a job, when you've got family, kids, real life stress, and you can still make progress in the gym with your strength, with your power, with your speed, with your body composition. I'm going to speak through some key principles. These are not workouts. These are principles that I want to work through. Whether you play Saturday only or if you're playing Saturday and Sundays, I'm going to help you to break it down. So first things first is to recognize that during the season, football is the priority. Training around it must support the football. It should not be the other way around. Your gym work is there to make you better on the pitch. And if your training throughout the week is hurting you on match day, if it's hurting your match day performance, if you're dropping off in the last 30 minutes of a game, it means that what you're doing through the week is either too much, and if it's not too much, it's probably mistimed. You're doing it at the wrong time. The goal isn't to be tired come game day. You want to be ready. You want to be primed to perform and start winning games, start dominating games. And it's on game days where that gets expressed. Everything you've done throughout the week, but also over the last few weeks, over the last few months, it gets expressed on game day. You don't build your performance on game day. That's done way, way before. And then when you turn up, it's time for you to perform. Now, something we see a lot, especially in the non-league world, is it's tough. There's so much that you have to manage. The reality of non-league life, quite honestly, a lot of lads say, I want to go and play higher non-league levels, and it's a massive commitment. And we often see a lot of kind of general fitness plans, general kind of bodybuilding plans, they fail because they don't account for full-time work. If you run a business, probably working even more hours than full-time hours. There's variable kickoff times. So you've got midweek game, 7:45. You've got Saturday, 3 p.m. Sometimes you even have a Friday night game, depending on the level that you play. There's fixtures across the week sometimes. We've got training throughout the week. Some teams train once a week, some train twice a week, some train 3 times a week. Depending on the level of non-league you play, you might be training more than that, you know. You've then got, obviously, a game on a Saturday. You might even have a game on a Sunday. When there's so much going on across the week, we have very poor recovery windows. We need to be really smart with how we manage it. Football alone is not enough if you're serious about improving your outputs on the pitch, on how you perform, whether you dominate that game, whether you feel strong come the last 2 months of the season, or you're feeling a little bit wiped out. How you perform in the last 30 minutes. Are you starting every single week? Are you a favourite in the side? Are you a favourite in the starting 11? Most programs out there that I see, they assume that you're going to have ideal recovery across the week. You're not going to have too much else going on. Non-league players, we do not live in ideal conditions. This is not an ideal environment for us to be able to make gains in the gym, make gains with our body composition, perform well, and do everything else around it. So what does that mean? It means the structure that we have in place matters way, way more than the volume of things that we do. Really, really important that we have a good structure in place. Some of us, in fact, I'd argue that most of us don't actually need more training. You need to time the way you do train better. You need more recovery and knowing when to push hard and when not to. And you probably need to change the way you're training, but not necessarily add more training. So let me get into the principles of the non-league training blueprint. So principle number one is you must anchor your week around your games. Your games dictate the week. Everything else is going to be placed around that. You shouldn't be fitting football around the gym. Your game is the anchor, not the gym session. Your game is the anchor. Let's build around it. Where can we get a little bit of work in? This is something we say to our players all the time. Right, we've got 2 games this week. Where are our windows of recovery? Where are our windows of opportunity to go and do a little bit of work that's not going to be of detriment to our game? And when we find those windows, then we test it. Did we have a good week? Did we have a good performance? We feel good out there? Okay, cool. What are the numbers showing us? Does this support what you're saying and what you're feeling? Yes, great. Right. There's a strategy we've got in place now when you've got 2 games a week. It could be as simple as that. The second principle is making sure we separate your high days or your building days, as I like to say, and then your low days. When you're going to have a high day, when you're going to train hard, go all out, go absolutely full on and give it some. If you're going to have a high day, do it properly. Doesn't mean do like a shitload of volume so you can't walk the next day, but if you're going to train with intensity, do that properly. But then make sure when those low days, those recovery days come, you are really, really taking care of yourself. Really, recovery days is just one part of the puzzle. Around it all, your nutrition and your sleep, which is real recovery, what is true recovery, they should be absolutely like top of the list of priority for you if you want to make sure you start winning more games. If you start dominating that pitch, you need to make sure your recovery is dialed in. And we know that that's sleep, nutrition, everything else comes after it. Coming back to my point about high days and low days, make sure your high days are you train with intensity, but make sure your low days, you really protect your recovery. And I spoke about this in, I think, my previous podcast episode about recovery days being more like growth days. That's the way I kind of reframed it, and it changed everything for me. It changed the way that I approach rest days and recovery days. It changed my whole identity in terms of the way I live my life on those days, and that had a knock-on effect on me throughout the week. I used to be that guy who, when I had a recovery day, was like, oh, my nutrition would slip. I wouldn't really do any kind of mobility work. My sleep would suffer. Everything would just go to pot, to be honest with you. When I start reframing it as a growth day, in the sense that when I'm in the gym, that's when I'm breaking my body down. So when I'm on my recovery day, that's when I'm actually getting stronger and fitter. When I started reframing it like that as a growth day, everything changed. So it's important to recognize some days are for stimulus, strength, power, speed. Some days are for freshness. If you start to blur those lines and you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and there's no real focus on either day, you're going to start to feel flat. Come game day, you're not going to have got the stimulus that you want. You're not going to have hit the strength that you want to hit, or the power or the speed. And you probably wouldn't have recovered that well either, because you tried to do a little bit of everything. So the biggest takeaway from this principle is not every session should be hard. Some should be more challenging and some should be restorative. And if you can get that in place, sometimes it's quite difficult to do, especially if you're like me and always like really training hard. You have to just kind of reframe it a little bit. And I can guarantee you run that for 2 weeks and allow yourself to have those lower days and then higher days, you're going to be feeling super fresh come game day. It's something I've done this week. I'm recording this on a Friday. I've got a game tomorrow. It's on 4G tomorrow as well, so it's going to be a little bit hard on the joints. I've just tapered off the last 2 days. Yesterday I did some accessory work in the gym, some recovery work. Today I've done 10K steps already. It's only 4:15, and I'm going to do some mobility work this evening. Jump on the foam roller, have a little stretch out. That's me done. I'm going to show up tomorrow knowing that I've recovered fully, and then that gives you a certain level of confidence to be able to go and perform for the full 90 minutes, and you're not trying to save yourself because you know that you're not 100%. Point number 3 is that gym sessions have to earn their place. The way we train our athletes is short, focused gym sessions. I've become a really big advocate for this more in recent years, and even more so in recent months. I've been doing a lot more research and trialing a lot of different type of training methods. Number 1, quality over quantity always, and simple is always best. Brilliant basics, I like to call them. And if you can get good at your basics, at your basic compounds, you will see progress in the gym, which then translates to the pitch when you start to do really basic plyometrics. If the gym is leaving you feeling heavy-legged on a Saturday, it's not doing its job, because that should be there as a tool to support your performance, right? What does the gym session need? It needs power, plyometrics. It needs maybe some speed. Maybe you should have a dedicated speed session throughout the week. You need to be building robustness. Are you trying to change your body composition? Do we need to then look at more accessory work around everything you're doing? Things like bicep, triceps, shoulders, calves. You can integrate this across a training week, still train for performance, but also look as good as you perform without excessive fatigue. There's very, very simple ways to do that. But if the gym is leaving you feeling heavy-legged on the weekends, it's not doing its job. And you have to look at that, and you have to be really honest with yourself and recognize that my gym work's not working at the moment. I need to change something. So gym sessions must earn their place. Don't just train for the sake of training because everyone else is doing it. But it also doesn't mean skip your gym work either, because that will catch up with you as well, which I'll speak about very shortly. Principle number 4 is if you're playing more games, you probably need less work or extra work around it. It's an important mindset shift I think a lot of players struggle to make. Multiple matches per week, they're already going to provide a lot of stress. So any extra work we do comes back to those windows of opportunity I was talking about throughout the week. They must be very, very targeted to where you feel like you could probably get some work in without it being detrimental to your football performance. I always like to say, try and make this try and take your emotions out of it, because we all like to train hard. We always like to go to the gym. Sometimes the gym is there as a tool to help the mental side of things, just to kind of de-stress from a long day at work, or just keep you sane. I mean, the gym keeps me sane. 100% it keeps me sane. But I have to recognize that if I go into the gym today, for example, and I train really hard, it's going to impact me tomorrow. As much as I want to go and train hard today, I have to take my emotions out of it and think, okay, how can I work around this? Well, I'll get out and do some steps instead, much lower intensity. It's still going to keep me, it's going to give me that kind of mental space I need. So I'm taking care of the emotional side of it as well. But if you're training hard all the time, your body's going to break down, especially around football. If you're playing more games, be smarter with your training. You don't necessarily need to train harder. And when the games go, when the fixture schedule becomes really heavy, you have to find small windows of opportunity to try and do that gym work. Don't skip the gym completely, because what will happen is over the course of those fixtures, as you get towards the middle to back end of those fixtures, the body will 100% start to feel the effects of it. Whereas if you do a little bit of strength work, maintenance, we're not trying to make progress at this point, just maintenance strength work, you'll show up to football feeling really, really good, really, really fresh, strong, robust, and it'll have a knock-on effect on the way that you perform, especially in those kind of last half an hour of a game. And ultimately, you'll start to dominate games, and you'll keep dominating games without your body giving up on you. Principle number 5 is all about your body composition. Your body composition improves through a lot of what you do outside of the gym, the structure you have outside of the gym, not through the chaos that you create in the gym. If you're constantly trying to just do more in the gym, your body, especially if you're trying to focus more on bodybuilding type workouts and you're trying to balance football, a heavy football schedule, the two, they don't quite match up. And you'll see it all the time. You've probably got mates, you could be a player yourself listening to this, to be fair, who's tried to do the bodybuilding type workouts. You've done the heavy leg days, you've done the bicep curls and all of that. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for this in the program. I mean, yesterday I was doing bicep curls in the gym, but it's knowing when to do this stuff and how to prioritize this. But if you're doing a lot of that or too much of that and trying to play a lot of football at the same time, the two don't quite match up, especially if you're doing heavy leg days and things like that, high volume, lots of very knee dominant movements, lots of squatting movements, which a lot of bodybuilding workouts tend to have. You're not really taking care of your hamstrings. You're not really taking care of your glutes, the posterior chain, we call it. Very, very important for performance. That often gets neglected with bodybuilding type workouts. So I'm not really labeling bodybuilding as bad. If you're trying to purely improve your body composition, great, crack on. But if it's football performance that we're trying to improve whilst improving body composition, then you have to look at that structure outside of the gym and then knowing when to put the accessory work in. Because fat loss, really, you don't need to smash yourself in the gym. It comes down to your recovery. It comes down to your sleep. It comes down to your calorie intake. It comes down to the quality of the foods that you eat and being consistent with this rather than being super aggressive with your training or with your nutrition. And you won't get leaner or you won't add muscle mass by wrecking yourself in the gym. You have to be really, really smart with this. So recognize that if fat loss is a goal of yours, a lot of the way that you achieve that is going to be done outside of the gym. And then when you step in the gym, you need a really smart plan and a really smart structure that you're going to implement around your football. And you have to look at that load management throughout the week. Principle number 5 is, this is for kind of Saturday, if you're Saturday only players, and also for players playing on a Saturday and Sunday. For Saturday only players, if you're only playing games on a Saturday, you have a bit more space for quality gym work throughout the week. You probably have a bit more space for speed work. You still need that recovery built in. If you're playing Saturdays and Sundays, which I did for the last decade, this is the first season I've not played Sundays in the last 10, 11, 12 years even. If you're playing Saturdays and Sundays, gym becomes your support to be able to withstand the demands of playing essentially what could be 50, 60, 70 games across the season, because you're almost doubling the amount of fixtures. Yes, Sunday League is probably not as high as your Saturday level, although most Sunday teams have improved their quality drastically, and a lot of the Saturday lads are now playing on the Sunday. The only difference is you're not playing on a stadium, you're playing in a local park, but the quality is still there. So the gym needs to be a way to maintain and support your football on the weekend and throughout the week. You need to focus on staying explosive, on staying strong and robust. You don't need to exhaust the body more. And knowing when to recover and how to recover, not just with recovery sessions, but also with your nutrition and your sleep, it becomes a skill that you need to learn. And if you learn that, if you're playing Saturdays and Sundays, you can do it no problem. If something isn't quite adding up, or there's a piece of that performance puzzle missing, you will start to suffer, probably more so it'll be the Sundays at first. You'll feel a little bit leggy. That'll have a knock-on effect on your recovery throughout the week. You'll then probably start to pick up niggles, and then suddenly it starts to affect your Saturdays. That's often the downward spiral that we see. So you have to look at the different pieces of the puzzle, make sure they're all fitting together. If you're only playing Saturdays, if you're playing purely kind of non-league football, you have a lot of space throughout the week to be able to tick all the boxes that we need to tick from a strength and conditioning standpoint. But different schedules need different strategies. You don't want the same plan in place as someone who's playing, if you're a Saturday player only, you don't want the same plan as someone playing Saturdays and Sundays. You don't want the same plan as someone playing training 3-4 times a week. Every player is different. This is how we look at our players in the program. We look at their exact structure and say, okay, this is where our windows of opportunity of growth are. These are our recovery windows. These are your game days. These are your training days. This is the plan of action. Number 6 is, it's actually some of the mistakes we see players make most often. They train harder because they might have missed a session in the week. Something's popped up, maybe and this comes back to the non-league life. Work was stressful, you had to work later, or a midweek fixture's got put in, or something's happened. They've missed a session, right? And then they try and train harder around it because of that missed session, when we know that that's then going to have an impact on the next session, which could be the game. Could be a game day, it could be a team training day. So you don't necessarily need to train harder or train more, try and make up for missed sessions. Ideally, you just don't miss the session. But if something pops up, if life throws a curveball, it is what it is. Accept it, recognize it, look at, is there an alternative you can do? So if you can't get out to the gym, can you do something at home? If it's a conditioning day, or if it was a game, for example, game got cancelled or team training got cancelled, can I maybe go out for a run? Can I go and do some sprint work? Like, there's always a way around things. I'm a big believer in that. It's just about how you, number one, having the knowledge, if you've got the knowledge to do it, and then your approach to it, your mindset around the fact that, okay, I'm going to do something rather than just put my feet up and order a takeaway. Another mistake we often see is players trying to implement like the same week every week. And when I say this, what I mean by this is there's no progressive overload. There's no progression on what they did the previous time they were in the gym. It's an easy mistake to fall into because you're just trying to keep yourself ticking over around football. But suddenly what happens is 4-6 weeks have passed and you've made no progress with your strength or with your power or with your speed. So again, this is about knowing when to structure your gym work so that when you do go into the gym, you're fresh enough to be able to make those progressions, and then you can allow yourself the recovery so that when you show up to football, it doesn't impact you there either. A lot of players also use, like, they think that tiredness or DOMS, or which is delayed onset muscle soreness, or fatigue, they like wear it like a badge of honor. And listen, I was a huge advocate of this in the past, where I was like, yeah, you got to be tired, you have to graft, you got to do more. Especially in my younger years, I'm 31 now. When I was more like 21, 22, I used to like wear fatigue like a badge of honor. Big mistake, because you just show up to football and you're just completely battered. You can keep it up for a while and you can try and train through it. You can have your black coffee beforehand, you can carb up, you can try and get through it. But ultimately, your body's going to say, right, I've had enough of this. A point will come. So how do we get around it? Well, look at your high days, look at where your most demanding sessions are of the week. Generally, it's going to be match day. And then work around that. If you had a high day, the day after should be a low day, right? And then how can we have maybe kind of a medium stimulus day, and then maybe one other high day later in the week, or maybe another medium day in the week? The other day should be generally quite low. That's the best way to do it. You don't need, like, gains don't only happen when you completely smash yourself in the gym. It often comes from actually how well you recover and how you take care of yourself away from the gym, believe it or not. It doesn't come from being like going gym 7 days a week. It comes from having a really smart structure, like I've just mentioned, and then repeating it. Just literally repetition on repetition on repetition. It's really, really important. If you take anything from this, is recognizing, number one, you need that balance throughout the week, but also you need to be consistent with that balance. I think that's often where players go wrong, is they might have 1 or 2 balanced weeks, and then either they'll fall to the end of the spectrum where they start doing too much, or they start doing too little. They're not in that point where they just keep showing up and having that balance. That brings me to the end of this episode. If you want better match day performance, if you want more consistent energy, if you want fewer niggles, if you want to get stronger, more powerful, if you want to improve your body composition, I have created a non-league training blueprint. I actually mentioned this on Instagram yesterday. This business and the platforms that I'm on have given me, well, they've given me an incredible life and an incredible business, to be honest with you. It's just because of these platforms. We're in a very special kind of period right now, 2026. Everything's accessible to us to be able to do what we want, to be able to grow how we want, right? And as a little thank you, I want to try and give back to everyone who supported me. So if you listen to this, I appreciate you, because obviously you're plugging in, supporting the business and the program. And if you're on social media, on Instagram, on my TikTok, on Twitter, on Threads, like, I appreciate you. And I wanted to give back to you. So what I've created is a non-league training blueprint. It's going to help you to map out your whole training week. So if you're someone who's listening to this right now and thinking, this makes sense, but I just don't know how to apply it properly around my schedule, that's why I built this, all right? It's designed for non-league players with real lives, with real kind of issues going on throughout the week, with fixtures, with family, all of that. And the ultimate goal of it is to help you guys to train better and a little bit smarter, not necessarily harder, just smarter and better. I will put the link in the description here for this podcast. If you want it, click on it. It's all yours for free, just as a little thank you. I will catch you guys next time.